Hello, you multi-magnificent malt mates. Yeah, that's you, you know, definitely. And a big thank you to Adrian Smith for that malt mention, introducing Ralphie Review 999. There we go. Many years ago, I was sitting, I hadn't arrived at the Bothy then, but I was sitting in my studio thinking, do you know what, I'll maybe do about 100 reviews, that should be enough. People will have had enough after 100 reviews. And here we are, all these years later, 999. So, it's kind of not quite 1,000, but we're definitely getting there. So, of course, I'm sure you're expecting me to be reviewing something that's a bit of a banger. And indeed I am. I'm being quite self-indulgent, actually, in this review. And I've basically opened a bottle 2 weeks ago of some, what I consider to be really good whiskey. And I'm going to share it with you. I've reviewed it before several times. But you find with experience that over time, even when our palates change and we get more experience and we notice a kind of shift in our preferences, which is inevitable, as we simply gain more experience and our palate has more familiarity, that what happens is there's some whiskies we kind of move away from and we don't buy so often, but there's other whiskies that we come back to. And it's not just the fact that they're really good, it's the fact that they represent a transparency, a certain honesty in delivery. And this is a very good example. This is Annoch 24-year-old single malt from Knockdhu Distillery in Speyside, although I have to say that it's got rather a Highland character to it. Wonderfully so. And in fact, in the entire Annoch range, you cannot go wrong. They just don't bottle bad whiskey. Sure, the basic entry level is bottled at 40%, but in a sense, I'm not going to quibble about that because it's providing a first experience for people on a budget of a certain personality, a signature from a single malt distillery. But I honestly feel that this distillery, the producers, Inverhouse, are really missing out on not actually closely observing the small new start distilleries and seeing the way they are presenting and connecting so effectively to the wider market and to whiskey fans globally by bottling, you know, starting at 46% unchill filtered natural colour, which is a really good reason to go for this bottling because this is 46% and it says it on the label, on the front of the label where it actually matters, non-chill filtered and natural colour. So this is very, very reassuring, you know, that there's some official bottlings that don't kind of leave the integrity delivery to independent bottlers, but they do it themselves. And to be honest, I mean, I'm being selfish about this, maltmates, when I say that Annoch has never been glamorous. Annoch has never been considered to be in the status of Macallan and Lagavulin and Bowmore and even Glenfarclas. Annoch is considered one of these, you know, other whiskies which happens to be in the shelf that someone might buy it for you by mistake because they couldn't see a bottle of Macallan. And the fact is they're doing you an enormous favour at the same time as they're saving themselves a significant amount of money. Knockdhu makes great whiskey, and the Annoch brand, particularly the 18-year-old, is an absolute belter. The price of the 24-year-old has gone up a few months ago towards the beginning of the year, and it went from 115 to 150 pounds. Now that's a bit of a jump, but I tell you what, for the age of the whiskey, for the quality of the whiskey, and for the calibre of the delivery of the whiskey, which is so important. I mean, as soon as you see, let me give you some advice here while my whiskey is oxidising and opening up in the glass here. And when you ever see a bottle of 18-year-old single malt and above, which is bottled at 40%, it doesn't matter what the price is, walk away, because the calibre of the delivery has been extremely curtailed by the chill filtration. And it's not this, by the way, you will not get this from official sources. You won't get this information and opinion from some experts who will describe it as, well, you know, this is very subjective and it's a matter of personal opinion, and, you know, chill filtration doesn't do any harm at all. I mean, frankly, you won't even notice it, really. You won't even notice it. But the fact is, you make your mind up. You set yourself the challenge. It doesn't matter what the experts think, and it doesn't matter what I think. It's your experience. And the experts and myself are only here to give you a perspective and to give you some information which you may or may not find useful. Anyway, I'm going to give you some information that you may find useful. A distinctly sherried single malt. I would describe it as a hint of peat in the background coming from the still signature. It is barley rich, grain led, mildly fruity, with some white fruit stone aspects to it. There's a slight almond note, slight apricot kernel note, so you're getting that little touch of bitterness in the nose. I immediately notice that the quality of the cask used for this is phenomenal. Really, really good. In fact, it's when you come back to a whiskey that you've known on and off for over 10 years, and it's amazing how much memory we have simply because of our subliminal instinct for survival. Because our subconscious senses want to keep us alive, and therefore we have phenomenal memory banks within our brain for smell and taste, so as that we could pick out poisons when we encountered them in very primitive times. And it is extraordinary just how you can come back to a whiskey that you've already known from that you've maybe not even tasted for 2 or 3 years. And you just immediately, you recognise it, and immediately you can spot the difference. And the difference with this contemporary bottling of an Ock 24-year-old is that I've never seen it in better casks. The quality of the sherry casks actually smell, let alone taste, they smell that they've actually matured real sherry for sherry drinkers. It's that kind of sherry cask. And you may be saying, well, hang about, Ralph, you know, that's quite unusual these days, but I put it to you this way. This was distilled 24 years ago. What date was it 24 years ago? This is 2023. Coming on 2024, and it's a 2024 whiskey. So it's a 24-year-old whiskey. So you're looking at 1999, 1998. Back in those days, the surge in demand for sherry casks had not yet begun. And therefore, this is something that you'll find in older whiskies which have been matured long term in original cask, which this one comes across as having been. I mean, we can get information from distillers and producers till the cows come home. We really can. At the end of the day, we've got to trust our own senses and our own experience. Because sometimes producers are not completely transparent with all the facts. They're selective with the facts. So we need to rely on our own interpretation, which inevitably gets hugely empowered from the experience of drinking whiskey over time, over many years. So the taste. Deliciously bitter. There's the sweet and sour, and this dark, almost overcooked toffee note with a bitterness in it. You can easily drink this whiskey without adding water. I'm adding water. It's not just to dilute the whiskey, it's to dilute the effectiveness or reduce the effectiveness of the ethanol in the glass to hold on to the flavour molecules. And it drives off the flavour molecules. And as a result of adding water, and I'm not adding much, I've added 4 millilitres, so almost not quite a teaspoon. And that's enough to start chasing off the flavours in the glass, and flavours that, and the chemical flavours and smells that are attached to the ethanol itself. Naturally, and I mean I'm a bit strapped for time here, malt mates, but you're going to leave it, once you've added water, you really want to just add a little bit and then add a little bit more later, rather than add it all at once, and you want to give it a minute in the glass for each year in the cask. So this is what you call a half-hour dram. So you're going to have a smell and a wee taste after about 10, after about 20 minutes, but really you're going to connect with it with these previous point of references after about half an hour, and that's when it'll really start to, the volume will appear. The volume will appear like an opening rosebud. And funnily enough, there is a touch of roses to this as well. A little bit of rose otto, which is concentrated rose oil. Phenomenal cask. And already, I mean, I've just added a drop of water and already we're getting the Scotch mist appearing. Just to let you know, by the way, I even looked out my Annock glass for this Annock whiskey. Why? Because I've got one. No other reason. Just a delightful, characterful, engaging, old school sherry monster that isn't got a blanket coat of sherry. These are older generation sherry casks, and they tend to, rather than envelop the signature of the still, they participate with the still signature so as to allow the single malt character of this particular distillery to be transparent and visible. And I noticed that many people who have been big Sherry Monster fans have actually got tired of the Sherry Monsters because the actual sherry flavour is too much of the same. Right? It's too much of the same formula going on. Although it's quite cool in the bothy now that we're coming into autumn time and I haven't yet got the fire on, when it's cooler, the whiskey takes longer to open up, and so I'm kind of just gently rolling about the glass, which is a great thing to do. The more you spend time nosing the whiskey, the more it prepares you for drinking the whiskey, because ultimately the way the brain interprets it is that it uses the nose and the taste simultaneously to get the most of both. And this is something that we tend to segregate smell and taste for the convenience of presenting tasting notes and presenting the experience. But in fact, when we coordinate, or when it's coordinated for us by the brain, because both the nose and the taste buds are chemoreceptors and get interpreted by whole brain activity, you get this build-up, gradual build-up. And having paid £150 a bottle, you want delivery for what you've paid. You want a return in your investment. And in my opinion, I mean, there's other whiskies out there, other brands that are charging £500 plus for considerably less than you're getting here. But when you see a brand out there, £500 and they've chill filtered it and added colour, caramel colouring, you know, if you buy that, in my opinion, it's just an opinion, but I'm going to share my opinion with you, you're a mug. You're a sucker, right? And if you go out with a glass of this high-end, high-brand, high-profile whiskey and you're trying to impress people, the only people you'll impress will be the other suckers. The people who really know about whiskey will just go quiet and think you're a sucker. It's real life. Taste. Intense. Bitter sour. Mild sweet. Almost walnutty. Deep resinous. That's a good one. Raisin resinous sherry. It's wonderfully old school. There's no attempt to engineer sweetness either from the casks or from the signature of the still, which you'll find sweetness creeps in when malted barley is over distilled, when you get too clean or neat a cut. The savoury range is quite complex and very quickly transmutes into savoury. So the sour and savoury tend to come together with a background of controlled bitterness. It's absolutely beautiful. And there we have it. What adds to this is, by the way, is there's no ridiculous backstory. There's no absurd, pretentious packaging. You get it in a standard cardboard tube. I really applaud the integrity of the delivery, which doesn't do anything in any way to patronise you. In fact, there's something in the back of the label I find really quite endearing, and that is a statement of nutritional value. Did you know that whiskey was nutritional? Well, apparently it is. And for every 25 millilitre pour, which is a standard measure, and you shouldn't really be having too much more than that, so no doublers, you'll get 64 kilocalories. You'll get 0 fat, 0 saturates, 0 carbs, 0 protein and 0 salt. If you do detect any saltiness from your whiskey, it's not actual salt. It's really part of the salt sympathetic or salt familiar or similar other combinations of sensations and flavours that are making up the enormously complex signature of this whiskey, which I'm going to be, just for the record, I'm going to be enjoying this bottle, not just for the rest of this year, but for the next several years. And what I will do is I will go into my stash, because the stash is not just closed bottles, it's open bottles as well. And I will open my 2 previous bottles of 24-year-old Arnock, and I will have a flight of 3 glasses of 3 generations of Arnock 24-year-old side by side. And when you do that, because you've had the patience to keep the bottle and just store the bottle properly, upright, cool environment, in a cabinet, away from sunlight, it's amazing how intact they remain, particularly when they haven't been chill filtered, haven't been adulterated with caramel colourant, and they're bottled at a higher strength. That makes a huge difference in the longevity of a whiskey in the bottle, even when you're looking at age. Now, bear in mind the age here is 24. It's not 42. And that's significant because many of these really old whiskies you see out there with the wonderful dark colour and the outrageously over the top crystal decanter flasks at even more outrageous prices, that basically they're really old and tired. They're just basically survivors. They've managed to just hang on in there. And if you're in the market to buy that sort of stuff, I mean, good luck to you. But to be honest, I wouldn't even thank you for a glass of it, because after all that time, how much signature identity is even going to be left over all these years? At that point, the cask utterly dominates. And if it doesn't, it's because they've basically been using an inert holder cask just to help their malt go the distance. Cheers. If you pop back again for Ralphie Review 999 extras, I shall be talking about what's a good malt. What is a good malt? As time goes on, it gets more zesty, more slight rum-like, more tannic, and it changes shape, changes texture, the bitterness subsides, it becomes more languid, becomes more muscovado, more softer raisin. Again, this is the great thing about these old whiskies, that they if they're done properly, and this is so important, they've got to be done delivered properly in the bottle. Then they will deliver their expressiveness over time, and you just simply, for the investment and the price you're paying, you're getting so much more of a delivery of the experience. Anyway, I'm done and dusted. I could bump on a bit more about this, but there's no need, because I think I've delivered my message loud and clear. But before that, I press the Clivey clicker. I better give this a malt mark. I'm really enamoured with this. I'm really hugely impressed with this, actually. And I've not given a high mark for quite a while, but I'm going to give this a high mark because it's a genuine, old school, unconcocted, uncompromised, good value, honest, simple, practical delivered single malt. There's so few of them out there these days that you've got to look for them, and you'll find them in the independent bottlers. There's so few official bottlings even go there now. I mean, you look at the Diageo, annual release range, and you look at the prices, and they're just, if you buy them, in my opinion, you're just making a fool of yourself, or you're allowing Diageo to make a fool of you, because there's no way the quality of the content, particularly when it's been chill filtered and probably get caramel added, because it's their habit, it's their compulsion to do so. What kind of quality of whiskey are you going to get? Even Lagavulin, just ask yourself it's a simple, very simple question. Here's the Lagavulin, but how good would it be if Springbank made it? How much better would it be? And it would be so much more. 89 out of 100. Massive big malt mark. Not delivered one of those for a while. And there it is, malt mark, 89. For Ralphie Review 999. It's been an absolute joy. My goodness. I wonder if I'll be even allowed to do 999 more, or will I be acutely censored by commercial interests, commercial, political, well, they're one and the same. Well, time will tell. We'll see how it goes. Bye-bye.